You told yourself last year was the year. Then the year ended. You told yourself this year was different. It isn't. Not because you don't care, but because no one ever told you what's actually happening inside you every time you sit down to begin, and then don't. You had the dream long before you had the words for it. It wasn't something you chose, not exactly. It arrived the way certain things do, quietly, privately, in the middle of some ordinary Tuesday when you were doing something unrelated and suddenly the picture was just there. Clear and enormous and entirely yours. And in that moment, something in you shifted. Because you could see it. You could feel the weight of it. You knew, with the kind of knowing that doesn't need evidence, that this was the direction your life was supposed to move in. That was supposed to be the beginning. But here's what no one tells you about the moment the dream arrives. It doesn't come alone. Carried right behind it, invisible at first, is something else entirely. Something that will follow you into every planning session, every notebook, every late-night conversation you have with yourself about why you still haven't begun. And that thing is not fear of failure. It is not lack of discipline. It is not even doubt. It is something far more subtle and far more destructive. The people who carry the biggest dreams are not stopped by the world. They are stopped by a very specific pattern that develops inside of them, one that forms slowly, quietly, and disguises itself as wisdom. And by the time most people recognize it, years have already passed. Not because they weren't trying, but because they were trying in entirely the wrong direction. Here's what actually happens. When the dream is large enough, when it genuinely matters, when it feels like the thing you were built for, you don't treat it casually. How could you? It's too important for that. So you begin to prepare. You read. You research. You study the people who have already done what you want to do. You think deeply about strategy. You turn the idea over and over in your mind, examining it from every angle, making sure you understand it completely before you begin. And this feels like progress. It feels responsible. It feels like the serious, intelligent approach that a serious, intelligent person would take. But this is precisely where the dream starts to die. Because what looks like preparation is often something else. Psychologists have a term for it. They call it productive procrastination. The act of doing real, valuable things that are simply not the thing. Reading 10 books about the craft instead of writing the first page. Building the perfect system instead of beginning with an imperfect one. Researching endlessly instead of moving messily. The activity is genuine. The motion is real. But the actual work, the vulnerable, uncertain, specific work of building the thing, never begins. And week after week, the gap between the dream and the reality stays exactly the same. Not because you weren't working, but because you were working on everything except the part that terrified you. There is a reason this pattern develops. And it is not weakness. The mind of someone with a large vision experiences that vision in a particular way. It sees the finished thing clearly. The completed book. The launched product. The built company. The life that has been constructed from that dream. And when it turns from that vivid future and looks at the present, the blank page, the empty document, the first awkward step, the distance between the two registers is something close to overwhelming. So the mind does what minds do when the path forward feels too exposed. It creates alternatives. It finds other things to do that feel important enough to justify not doing the thing. And it does this without your permission. Without your awareness. Often without you ever realizing it is happening at all. But here's the layer that sits beneath even that. the one that goes deeper than productivity patterns and psychological mechanisms. The real reason people with enormous dreams often don't build them is something they have almost never said out loud. It is this: if they never fully commit, they never have to fully find out. As long as the dream stays in the planning stage, it stays perfect. It stays intact. It lives in that private, protected space where it has never been tested, never been rejected, never been measured against reality. And there is something almost sacred about that space. Because inside of it, the person is still everything they believe themselves to be. Unlimited. Capable. Someone who could, if they really tried. And the moment they step out of that space, the moment they actually begin, actually publish, actually release, actually show the work, they trade the certainty of potential for the uncertainty of reality. And for someone who has built their entire self-image around what they are capable of, that trade is the most frightening thing they have ever been asked to make. So they don't make it. And they call it not being ready. This is the quiet place where big dreams most often fail. Not in the loud, obvious collapse. Not in the public defeat. In the silent, private decision to keep preparing just a little longer. To wait until the idea is more developed. Until the timing is better. Until they feel more certain. Until they have gathered enough knowledge, enough resources, enough confidence, to finally begin without the risk of discovering something about themselves they would rather not know. And the years pass in this waiting room. Understanding this does not fix it immediately. Awareness is not a key that unlocks a door. But it does something more important than that. It changes what you are dealing with. Because when you know the real mechanism, when you can look at your own avoidance and name what it actually is, you stop trying to solve the wrong problem. You stop trying to find more motivation, better systems, a stronger morning routine. You understand that none of those things reach the actual issue. Which is emotional. Which is about identity. Which is about the terrifying vulnerability of putting something real into the world and allowing it to be seen and measured and responded to. And knowing that changes the question you ask yourself. The question stops being, how do I become more disciplined? How do I stop procrastinating? How do I build the perfect plan? The question becomes, what is the smallest, most specific action I could take right now that would require me to actually begin? Not to prepare. Not to plan. Not to refine. To begin. Something so small it almost feels inadequate. A single page. A single email sent. A single conversation had. A single thing made and released into the world, however imperfect, however incomplete. Because the uncomfortable truth about big dreams is that they are not built in extraordinary moments. They are not built in the burst of inspiration or the perfect alignment of circumstances. They are built in the unremarkable, unglamorous decision to do one small thing today when every part of you is arguing for delay. And then to do it again tomorrow. And then again. Not because the momentum feels good. Not because the progress is dramatic. But because each completed action, however small, deposits something into a part of you that all the planning in the world cannot reach. Evidence. Quiet, private evidence that you are someone who does things. Not someone who intends to. Not someone who is about to. Someone who already has. The dream doesn't need you to be ready. It needs you to be present. In this specific day. This specific hour. With this specific imperfect action that you take not because you feel certain, but because you have decided that certainty is not the requirement. Motion is. You already know what the thing is. You have known for longer than you would like to admit. The vision has not changed. The desire has not faded. And you are not behind, not broken, not fundamentally different from the people who are doing it. You are simply standing at the edge of the most important decision you will make, not the decision about the dream, but the decision about today. About this one thing. About whether today is the day you stop preparing to begin and simply begin. The dream did not come to you randomly. It arrived the way things arrive when they belong to you. And it has been waiting, patiently, inside every moment you have spent getting ready for it. It is still there now. Before you leave, ask yourself one honest question. Not what your dream is. You already know that. Ask yourself what the one small thing is that you've been calling not ready for longer than it deserves. That thing. That's where it starts. Not tomorrow. Today has enough room for one beginning.